Well, there's supposed to be three of us giving this presentation. I think I got the short stick here. The other two are behind the camera, so I'm up front. We're going to talk about blues today, all the different blues? No, I guess that's another program. How about Rubina and Sunset? And then kind of talking a little bit about Carmen and how it was made for Les last evening. Oh, and speaking of Les, I must thank him. I've cut out about 6 pages. I don't have to go through the history, what was going on, so we can cut straight to it and cut my program down in half. Rubina. About the earliest known mention of Rubina was in the January 12th issue, 1925, of China Glass and Lamps. And I'm going to read it for you. Living up to its reputation of introducing each January most interesting developments in table and decorative glassware, the Cambridge Glass Company of Cambridge, Ohio, has on display in room 728 at the Fort Pitt Hotel unusual lines in block optic and a new color called Rubina. The block optic in Rubina, the new transparent color, plain and decorated, are among the outstanding offerings in glassware. In Rubina glass, which can be had both in plain and block optic, new shapes in compotes, bowls, vases, candlesticks, and other pieces have been developed. Especially attractive is the refreshment set in block optic Rubina. The new glass is not one color, but a natural 3 or more tone glass in which the predominating shades are red, green, and blue, each tone dividing into the other. That's an exact quote out of the Trade Journal. Rubina was started in 1925. When it stopped, we don't know, but all indications are it was a short-lived color, because even though it was beautiful and the trade journals wrote it up highly, it was not really accepted too well. I'm sure we all have favorite pieces and favorite things we like about Rubina. We've got a lot of different colors here. You can see some are more red, more blue. Some lend themselves pretty good. Others do not. So we're going to kind of walk down through here and talk a little bit about the process. This candlestick in general is kind of unusual. We've got a light blue top down through the green down to the red. A lot of people say, what color did they start with? The color at the top, the light blue-green color, is about the natural glass color as they took it out of the tank. And again, the glass is about 2,000, 2,100 degrees, so it's kind of hard for the glass worker to see, what's going on with it. This glass is what they call a heat-sensitive glass. It was struck, and by striking, it means after it came out of the mold, be it a press mold or a blown mold, it was then put back in the glory hole or through a glazer, and that then caused the other colors to develop. So again, we started here with the light blue-green color, and depending on where the fire and the flames hit, it then developed into the darker red color. So I talk about a glory hole. Does everybody know what the glory hole is? It's the hottest part of the furnace, and most of the glass workers working have it on a snap, have the piece on a a cast iron snap back into the glory hole, and it's being spun the whole time to maintain the shape. And depending on how far he got in there, how long he left it in, is how the Rubina changed and how the graduate happened. I also mentioned a glazer. And what a glazer was, it was this item, kind of reminds you of a carousel. And it had 20 or 30 spots on the carousel, and they would set an item on it, and it would go around, and they had flame jets hitting different parts of the item. They would adjust it. So as it was going, it was spinning and going all around here, and it might have 2 or 3 or 6 or 8 different stations where the flames would hit different parts of the item. So when they're originally setting it up, the first couple, 3 times, they might have the fire off different, and then you get something that doesn't have a good color. So as they're adjusting it and getting it, just tuned in, you end up with a nice coloration, a nice meld through the colors. So we've got 2 ways of causing the Rubina to strike. And that is 1 back in the glory hole, and 2 is the glazer. Now, before I did as I was studying to put the presentation together, I called Bernard Boyd, because Boyd Glass has made Rubina, and I talked to him about, what the color was, how easy it was to work with. He had a few answers for me, turned me off to his son, John, who is more the chemist, and we talked at length, about the chemistry and everything else. And what I found, last night, again, Les was talking about Carmine. The Rubina you're looking at here is 95% Carmine, formula-wise. Sand is about the same, soda, potash. There's no potash in this, but in the Carmine formula it had potash. Lime, excuse me, lime is about double. The borax, about double. Zinc oxide, about the same. Cadmium sulfide, that is the one thing that really caused the red. It is a little bit less than the Carmine formula. Selenium is the same. Cobalt oxide, it had 3.25 ounces in a 2,000-pound tank of glass. 3.25 ounces. That's not much at all. And it also had lepidite, 72 pounds. This is another item that was not found in the Carmine formula, but that is one of the things that caused the change in the glass. So we've got the cobalt oxide, the lepidite, and no potash. Excuse me. And again, Boyd's used a glazer, and that's again how the majority of these are done. But if we look at this little compote here, we see a light band around the foot. Reason for the light band, again, there were a couple ways to strike the glass. We had this on your punty, and it was colder and didn't get the heat. So again, you've got the light blue color down at the foot. Another example, you got good coloration throughout and a real light blue band around the foot. Poor color, bad color. And again, talked with Boyd's about, in a lot of the glass formulas, you have cullet. And this allows the sand, the potash, and everything else to melt faster. And it also makes a stronger and a better glass. So if you're making a batch of moonlight blue or cobalt or green or anything else, you possibly have 200 or 300 pounds of cullet in the batch. That starts the melting process that then gets the sand and the potash and everybody else melting along with it. So I says, can you use cullet in the Rubina formula? And believe it or not, you can. But the more times you use the cullet and heat it over again, the muddier it gets. And And again, this is speculation only. I would imagine after a while, after been sitting in the tank overnight, maybe the second day, the color starts to burn out. We've got a real interesting piece here. We've got a little night set, a complete night set that has the lid, the tumbler, the base, everything all matched. This is the way it's been, the way it was bought. Notice the handle, nice blue handle. We have the same exact picture in shape and size, but notice the handle, red. And again, right, bottom, light blue in color. And again, if you really think about how it was made, it's surprising that all handles aren't red, because the handle is a separate gather of glass. This main body is blown. The finisher works on it and finishes it and gets the spout and everything else. And then the handle guy has the second gather. He sticks it, flips it, and they attach it. So you would think all of them possibly would be red, but maybe they do it all and then put it on the glazer. I don't know. You know, I haven't actually seen it made, but why is one blue and why is one red? Another great item, handle, is about the pure way that it comes out of the pot. We've got 3 sweet pea vases. They're all vary a little bit in color, a little bit in shape and size. That shows the hand finishing. You know, each worker is a little bit different, but the coloration and how they were fired and adjusted and handled afterwards. Stories. I love stories. We have a Rubina Georgian tumbler, something that is in very few collections. I bought this item about 38 years ago, and at that time in the showcase was a pair of milk glass reflector caprice candlesticks. And the story goes there were only 12 of these made. Do I buy this or do I buy the milk glass caprice reflector candlesticks? I bought this, left the candlesticks, and after the fact, I think I've seen more than a dozen of these. So like so many stories you hear, maybe there's a little truth, but you got to take it with a grain of salt. And only seen one pair of the caprice candlesticks. Right, Richie? Yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh, my. 3051 stemware is kind of an interesting item. Really nice, really thin. Now, this you can maybe get a little bit better understanding of how the item was made. These are all blown. So it's blown, and then you've got the extra bubble of glass on top. After it goes through the finisher and so on, the top is cut off. So now we got a jagged edge, basically. You know, after you've cut it off with a diamond, you've busted. And so this then is put on the glazer, run through the glazer, and it fuses the top, gives you a nice smooth top. But that's how you get the nice graduation in the color, and why the top only and a little bit in the stem have the red color. You can look at all the stems the same basic way. Sunset is in the same family as Rubina, only later. The Sunset was at the reopening period of the factory. Now, I have found formula for the Rubina. Tommy Mosser shared a formula book about 35 years ago with Bill Smith and the study group up in Dayton. And there's a Rubina formula called Rubina Blue Strikes Red, January 2nd, 1925, which corresponds to the China Glass and Lamps issue of when it was introduced. And at the bottom it says, made samples for 1925 display. So this is the formula that the Rubina samples were made for that they talk about in the display. But anyhow, all the chemists and so on are pretty secretive of their formulas. So this glass formula book only dated to 1940-41. I talked to Mr. Boyd. He did not have the Rubina formula. He didn't have anything from the reopen period. Helmers had left the factory by then. So other than appearing in the price book, the 1956 price book on the Sunset, we don't really have any other information other than it was made. I don't know if it's the same formula, but if you look closely, you can see some of the blue. You've got the red. Speculation is it's the same formula, but they couldn't come up with the same raw materials they used when they made the Rubina. Guess only. We've got the spiral optic ranch tumbler. Again, the color is very nice. You know, the top again where they fired it from the glazer. And they had a second jet hitting this where they didn't have with this. We got the same band at the top, but we had the flame hitting the bottom as it went around the glazer to bring the nice red and deep color out in it. So we know a little bit about the Carmen. The Carmen was completely one color, and when it came out of the mold, I have, again, the formula book. We have amber to strike red. So as we talked about Rubina being a light blue in color to start with, that then strikes the different colors, Carmen was some type of amber color. Now, I'm not saying this is how it looked, but a lot of people refer to this as amberina. I've been told that this was a trial item, made one batch only. The tank got destroyed. People in the higher-ups got upset. But anyhow, this is close to the color that Carmen would look like before it was really fired. So if you took Carmen out and hit it on the glazer only instead of, in a glare hole and got everything fired, this might be something similar that you would come out with. Now, no other color that we're aware of that Cambridge made required refiring like the smoke and the Rubina. Everything else came as made. The blues and the yellows and the greens, that's exactly as it came out of the tank. But Rubina and so on, again, because the additional handling, the expense was probably half again more than the comparable items in a moonlight blue or light green or any other color. Are there any questions at this point in time?
I have two questions. One, about the Carmen glass. If they're going to make a run on Carmen, what exactly, when you held up that vase back there, is it just the yellow part is the color that comes out, and then they fire it and make it the red?
Everything I can see, it's kind of an amber, yellow, reddish color, yes. And again, they've got a different formula for pressed and a different formula for blown. They must have had a lot of trouble with the carmine to come up with a good, dark carmine that held throughout like we saw last night. So I've got one color for Rubina, and I've got 6 formulas for carmine. And that's just, a 1925 time period.
So the longer time that it would be fired would affect the red color.
Yeah,
perhaps.
Yeah, probably.
And my second question is, could you be a little bit more clear on how to differentiate between the Sunset and the Rubina? I understand there's supposed to be a way to do it.
Like so many other things, you need to know what the item is, okay? You're not going to find that item in Sunset. You're not going to find a Wedgwood type Rubina Ramshead bowl in Sunset. The time period, 1956, 58, you've got to look at the catalog and the price list to the items they were making at that time. Okay, so that cuts out 90% of all this stuff. And there were very few items that they made in it. The different kinds of spiral ranch tumblers and the 3 sizes here. But it's kind of an elusive item. You don't see that much of it.
Thank you.
The refiring process, that's only being done with this particular formula. If you did that refiring on one of the other formulas, like the Moonlight or something, you wouldn't get any effect.
No, and they use the glazer that they would strike, this on the glazer. They use that to fire polish regular glass. A lot of times you have this is a two or 3 part seamed item, okay? And by putting it on the glazer, that fire hitting it causes that seam to kind of smooth out. So it would not affect Moonlight Blue or purple or pink or anything else other than help give you a better product, a more finished product, shinier, and so on. Why they call it a glazer.
I'm Mr. Boyd. You asked me to bring some pieces over.
Yes.
Do you want me to say anything? Or?
I would love you to. Come on up here, sir. We got Bernard Boyd here, ladies and gentlemen. I talked to him, and he said he would come and show us a few things, and I'm glad you could make it. Thank you, sir.
So I'll go into the formula itself, the selenium and orange cadmium. And selenium takes a real hot fire, and cadmium takes a real cold fire. So the marriage is not very good. I mean, it's one, if you took chemistry, remember the hot fire was blue and the cold fire was yellow. And there's 2 different ones. And so it's hard to meld it together. You need what they call a catalyst. And the catalyst would be, you've heard gold, and you heard gold coins, but that's not right. You take gold and you mix it with an acid and sprinkle it on the batch itself. The batch itself looks like gray sand when you're done. But the problem with there's a product called lepidolite that we got from Africa, and then they decided they didn't want to trade with Africa, so we couldn't get any lepidolite. And lepidolite is what we needed to marry the two. Cadmium and selenium. You will say selenium also makes pink. That's a pink color, like Crown Tuscan. And Crown Tuscan, if you don't watch out, why, if the mold gets too hot, it scorches. So instead of being a pink like it should be, it scorches into a brown. Magnesium's the same way. The purple, well, purple will look scorched or gold, like if the mold gets too hot. So you got to stop and cool the mold down, or the color will leave. Now we at the Boyd's, we always use the tank, and the tank has a flame at the top of the batch, whereas a pot is evenly heated all the way through. So you can see why, if you have a tank and you're hitting the top of the tank with a flame, the top would melt first and then go down, down, down. So you can see where the pot batch would be better than the tank. Now at Boyd's Glass, a lot of our things are solid pieces, and so we just grab a couple pieces out here. The collet looks like this, and the funny part about it, when you're making Rubina, it'll be, if the head breaks or some part of it breaks, it'll have red in it. But when you throw this collet into the tank, why, it's blue the next day. It's light blue. The problem is you don't need too much cobalt, because cobalt's so damn, pardon my expression, but it's so strong. So you dilute the cobalt down, and it's what they call powder blue. And it looks just like robin egg blue, but a little lighter. Now, we used to dilute our cobalt down ourselves. We used soda and put a little bit of cobalt with it, and melt it, and it did all right. But we didn't have to buy the pre-made powder blue, because it just took parts of an ounce. And you don't want to, we tried to make it with too much blue, and we tried it with not as much blue, and we tried it with uranium. And so with the uranium, it didn't fluoresce as much as what you'd think it would be. But what we did, we were experimenters. My dad was, and we'd play around and do a lot of silly things, you know what I mean? So, but that's what the collar looks like. Now,
give him a little history about your dad too.
What's that?
I said you might give him a little history about your dad.
Oh yeah, he's been all over. Him and my grandfather used to work in different factories over the country, and they were traveling flints, and one would gather and one would press. My grandfather was a presser, and my dad was a gatherer. And so they would go around going to depression, and they would have a job. You know what I mean? If they could make a glass faster than a normal shop, or they'd have employment during the depression. Okay, now he's watching me right now.
Yeah.
This am I holding?
Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Our glass is mostly solid, and so you can see this is a solid piece of glass made in a Rubina color, but you see it all strikes. There's very little. You just at the tail end of the owl, you can see the little blue, but the bulk of it is you wouldn't know it was Rubina. You want to go ahead and pass that around?
Sure.
When you're making Rubina, it looks like this. See how the edge of the forget-me-not is kind of plain, okay? And then as you heat it, why, see it would strike. So the more you heat it, why, the better it would be. If you heat it too much, it would go out of shape. So you want to just heat it enough to turn it, but not so much that it would be out of round in here. Okay, pass that around. Now this is a, we remember he was talking about a glory hole. Glory hole is a little, in our factory, was just a little bit of a tank. And we would put it on a snap and put it in the glory hole, and the top would strike. And see, this one is probably one I've done. It wasn't done real good. This is one my dad would do, and the thing is, when I would get it this warm, the foot would get loose, and it would flop around. And I've got several wines that the bowl is out to the side. In fact, they won't even hardly stand up. But I saved them just silliness, just to see what it would be like. Okay, now this is one definitely my dad done. It had to be heated a lot. This is all the same mold. It had to be heated more, and then flared it out. And of course, as you see, where the snap was is a light blue, but where he put it into the glory hole and spun it, why it spun out and made it flare out. That's all the same wine. So that's basically my show and tell.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Boyd?
Yeah, okay. What's that? No, right now my gather quit. And so we're in trouble. Oh, you need a gather in order to, he asked me if I'm still making glass, and my gather quit. So he had a chance to go to Battery Depot, and of course I'm 78, and he thought, well, he might have a better future. The owner of Battery Depot is a lot cheaper, a lot younger than I am.
Your store is still open.
Oh yeah. I still got a lot of inventory I got to get rid of, and I'm looking for a gatherer. You know what I mean? But the young people don't want to do it. You know what I mean? They don't want to. If it gets a little hot, why the young kids. When I had one guy work half a day. You know what I mean? He come in and everybody went to lunch, and then we was getting ready to start back. And we only had we had a 3-man shop. So we had a heck of a time getting through that day. But, those things happen.
We stop at your place every year.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I don't remember seeing these, but maybe they're there.
Well, we have a wine. We have about 4 or 5 wines. And it's something we don't make all the time. We had a union shop and they quit. And so I had a guy in West Virginia make my glass. And there was a long ride down there and back, so we decided that we would try to do it ourselves. So that's what happened. I turned out, my son was pressing, and Charlie was gathering, and Tracy, the girl who works in the showroom, she was carrying in. And so, we was doing all right, but
I think we've got another question out here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I just want you to pass that around.
What's that
The
around?
little chunk.
Little chunk?
So we can see what it is.
I'm sorry. That's just the collet. Collet. It's when you mix a batch and you make the batch, it's real soft. It's hard to tell when you pull the plunger back is how much glass is in there. So you put collet in it to make it tougher. It's like making gravy. You know what I mean? If it's soft and if you put a little flour in it, it makes it thicker. It's the same thing with glass. You want to put, and like he was saying before, you can use collet and use it over and over. But the thing is, once I run out of the formula and I'm just using the collet itself, it's harder and harder to make it strike red, because what you need that slame and that lepidolite. That I found some in New York, and they want to sell me 55 tons. That's how much a carload. I said, well, just tell me who buys it, and I can go and buy 100 pounds from them. then since then I had some rock people come in, and they've heard about it, and they get me a pedalite, but it's in big chunks, and I have to have it ground. And the local guy said he would grind it for me, but he's in the gravel business, and so I was afraid what would turn out. You know what I mean? Now, see, when I first started, we go through a small supply company because we don't buy tons of anything. We buy 100 pounds, 200 pounds. And so the small company that we dealt with, when we buy the selenium, was like 75%. And today, your selenium is more pure. And so they say that the purity of the selenium also holds you back on making the glass, because the stronger it gets, but some of the impurities they took out hurts the product, the end product.
This
Okay.
cullet, you
What's
don't
that?
make this cullet. You
Yeah.
do not make it,
Oh yeah. Call it. It's just
Scrap glass.
broken pieces.
but it's clear, or it's all different colors.
No,
or,
it'll be blue and red, and just like this.
Depending
then
on
when
the color
when-
glass he's making,
Yeah.
he would use that color scrap glass as
but I
cullet
thought
into
he
that
talked about
batch.
buying cullet.
Well, yeah, you can buy collet. I mean,
Is it clear?
well, it can be any color you want it. I mean, well, we'll say like a Gabbard, which is down in Marietta. They buy glass from Fenton. So when Fenton ladles out a tank and puts it in, and I'm making paperweights, why then I'll buy some any color I want. See, white just has a lot of fluoride in it. That's what makes white white. The problem is, if you try to make a color, you have to put more color into a white piece of glass to make it blue or green or yellow than it would if it was like window glass. If I'm making clear, I just take a little bit of selenium or cobalt or whatever I'm tinting it with. But if it's white and I have to color it, I have to use a lot more of the coloring material to make white the color.
Okay, you partially answered the same question I was going to ask
Go ahead.
about the cullet, but let's say your initial batch of Rubina.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have Rubina cullet to work with,
No.
so you use another color of glass.
No.
Okay, how do you start your first batch of Rubina?
The first batch of Rubina is just Rubina glass, and as I said earlier, it's real soft and pliable.
But no cullet.
No color.
Okay.
Now the next day, I have what they call a day tank. Every day we had to put in glass. So the next day, I'll have some broken pieces or some pieces that didn't fill out. So that's cullet. So I'll throw that with the batch, and the glass is easier to work because when he's gathering out, he can feel it better, and when he presses it, he can feel it better because he can feel the resistance. See, when it's like water, you can't feel the resistance, and the glass will squirt out of the mold.
Okay, I realize the answer is going to vary on what I'm asking here, but what is the net weight of glass in your pot, and how much cullet would you typically put into that net weight of fresh glass?
Okay, now you're just talking to a little guy. Okay, I don't weigh my cullet. I just go to the seat of my pants, I throw it in, and go there. We've made over 300 different colors, and some of the colors will never be made because I use earthium, which is $100 a pound, and nobody in their bright mind would make a pink with erbium, because erbium is usually used in crystal to make it clear.
Okay, so your typical day's run, your typical pot, what percentage of that would be cullet?
A fifth of it, very little of it. You don't want to use too much of it because you destroy the batch itself. So before, we do a lot of funny things at Boyd's. So I'll put bone ash in a piece of formula, and when I hit it with heat with the glazer, it'll turn white. And when I have, we'll say magnesium or something like that, it'll strike not white, but it'll be more on the purple side of white. And then we'll say like on cadmium, well, remember that's that yellow. You reheat it, and it'll strike orange. So we made some things that had orange on the top. But as I said, normal factories, we have formulas, but we're tinkering around with them all the time, And so the last formula I was going to make was called moonshine, and I have a brother that lives in Tennessee, and he sent me some moonshine, and so I was going to make a batch of crystal, and then throw in this moonshine, and I was going to call it moonshine. But I've had Buckeye, which I put Buckeye nuts in the formula. Now, so when you're little, you just name the glass anything you want to, like Oops and John Surprise, and I've got all kinds of names, which are just because of we went on a vacation, we went somewhere in Smoky Mountains or Bermuda or something. That's how we call the glass. And we can also identify when we made it. Okay. Well, these are all easy questions. You don't have any hard ones? Okay. Well, I'm pleased to be here. He wanted my son to be here, and he had to go to South Carolina, so he stuck me with the job.
Well, thank you, Mr. Boyd.
I was hoping I came in with my little bag, and I was sitting in the side, and I didn't see anybody I knew, and I had a couple people come in and see me, and then I sit with Bennett, and then I knew I was had. If they ever say that they're gonna get me up here, and I don't like to get in front of people. Okay.
Thank you a lot. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you. We appreciate it. Well, guys, that pretty much ends the story. I hope you all enjoyed it. Any additional questions for me? Yeah, Jack.
Frank, just listening today, I've heard a couple of just misconceptions quelled that I've always heard over the years. And one thing because we've heard a number of things how it looked when it first came out of the mold before it was refired. Because sometimes we were under the misconception that it came out that murky, gummy looking, like the twist candlestick.
Okay, yeah.
Or like that. So it actually came out blue, which was the first thing that was neat to hear. So it actually, looked like that when it first came out. Okay. And the second thing was a lot of times we had heard that maybe it was refired more than once. There may have been 2 or 3 refirings, but maybe that was due to what you were talking about, putting it on that glazer, which would cause it to be. So that was pretty neat. The one question I had was, and we were talking about this earlier today, some of these pieces have, different types of optics in them, like the honeycomb, the paneled optic, the basket weave, and you've said that there's like 2 different ways a lot of times you can put optics in a glass. One, you can, put it in a mold the second time, or actually the optic came out of the mold originally just like that. Was that affected at all by the refiring?
As far as I know, other than maybe this item, the optics we're looking at were in the mold. Because we look here, we have 2 patent drawings that show the actual honeycomb and block optic. They actually show, and I think those were in the molds themselves. Okay? So Other than like the spiral optic, it was in the mold, and then this was probably going through an optic mold and then blown into the shape.
When we were researching this, the 1955 tumblers over there that appeared in the one price list, they appeared plain and they sold for $10 a dozen. Crackle added a premium to it, making it Crackle at $15 a dozen. Sunset was $18 a dozen. So it added a tremendous amount to the price of the glass.
So the glass itself was more expensive, and the additional handling of the glass added additional expense to it.
And the last comment was on the optic. The only name that is documented in the few references we have is block optic. We like to call a lot of that stuff honeycomb. I'm not sure that isn't just a collector's nomenclature that we've added.
Larry said there was no such thing as a dumb question. I have one. I noticed in the showcase there's a picture. I don't think it's etched, but it looks like there was applied silver to it. I've never seen that before, and I was just wondering how much.
I was going to mention that there are a few things out in the case, the case heading towards the men's restroom, that are decorated. One with silver. I think there are maybe 3 items with silver. We also know of several items with a sponge acid decoration to it, and there might be one that has a border etching band around the top. I think that's about all as far as decorations go. But there's not that much of it, Joe. Rich Bennett, we have a mic coming your way.
Yeah, I'd like to know, what was the largest piece of Rubina made? Would it be the Decagon Punch Bowl?
I think that's about the largest, other than, you know, that wading pond you found in episode 3 of the Under the River and Through the Bridge episode. Yeah, I think that is the largest item we've seen to this date.
In the experimental case at the museum, we have a nude up there. I think it's a crystal nude flared compote, but it has the red stem with the yellow in it.
Yes.
In it. Is that considered what? What is the true color of that?
Well, as far as I know, Cambridge never made amberina as a documented color. There are several swans. There are several other things. There are several things that people say are amberina. And there are some experimental that could be an experimental amberina, but there's not an official Cambridge published name of amberina.
And one more thing. David had mentioned earlier about Crackle when he's holding up the sunset piece. Did they ever do sunset in Crackle?
I've never seen it, no, sir.
Do you want to see a piece?
I would love to.
Okay. Later.
Other than getting crackled because it's been buried so long, yeah. Anything else? All righty, guys. I hope you learned a little bit, and we'll get Mr. Boyd's glass back up here, and we'll pack her up for him. Thank you all.